Hello there and welcome. Gurdjieff once said that all forms of art were once an instrument of knowledge. They reflect the structure of existence. I happened to see a very refined and traditional Japanese theatre of puppets. Each puppet can have up to 3 puppeteers, but there is a head puppeteer whose face is revealed to the audience, and 2 other puppeteers who are as if concealed. This is a wonderful manifestation of Gurdjieff's teaching. Now, I've had some thoughts about how octaves become destroyed. Now, perhaps you've heard of the 7 seals. And what is sealed is the octave. Once it's sealed, it becomes stable and difficult to dislodge. But I heard once that as the West is being attacked, the first thing that happens is that you are demoralized. The second thing, that the intellect is replaced by foreign intellectuals who attack you in a different way, and then the body is taken. So the sequence of undoing is green, blue, red. In other words, they attack the emotions, then they attack the mind, and then they take the body, or the women if you like, or the land. That is the sequence of attack. The 3 elements that made up the West are revealed and attacked in sequence to undo it, to undo the knot. Beginning with the reconciling force, because it is the reconciling force that seals it and becomes the lower for the next higher. And so we see that the body is the real prize. The body is the thing that is finally being transformed. It is the earth that is being transformed. But for that to happen, first the masculine comes, and then there is this interaction between the positive and the negative, and then the reconciling occurs, and it lifts the earth into the next highest octave. And in fact, both the man and the woman rise together. And to live in the higher world basically means to lift the body up. Gurdjieff was a great genius, maybe the greatest ever, maybe the hardest working man ever, but he was not complete, and the results I think show that. He was always about climbing higher and higher and chopping more wood and reaching further, but in fact climbing up the mountain is only half the journey. You must also descend, and if anybody's ever done that, descending a mountain can be much more dangerous than climbing. If you do not descend back to where you started and transformed, the entire journey is wasted. And so it is with the positive forces of the path and the negative forces. If Gurdjieff was right, if his ideas are right, that means there must be something right in front of your face that is completely wrong. Now, what is it? What is it that's staring us in the face? Well, yesterday I was listening to a podcast about Gurdjieff's ideas, and they were talking about the law of 3, the law of 7, you know the law of 7, 7 coconuts, 7 Ford Fiestas, 7 monkeys in the tree. The personality can learn 50 theories in a day and repeat them perfectly. That is the problem. Real knowledge isn't like that at all. Gurdjieff described that people who talk from the personality and people who have learned inwardly experience completely different energetic movements. The ideas that the personality repeats are more like daydreams, but when a man has learned and learned the hard way, it means that the moving center, the emotional center, and the mental center are actually working. Just like a watermill is working, they are turning, and there is actual energy flowing from one to another and creating reconciling knowledge. And it is only that that is holy, because that causes the forces from the Absolute to work inside you. That is becoming rarer in this world. If I go back to the idea of the guilds, where for instance you have a guild of roofers, and you have a master guildsman who has been in the field, who has woken up on those cold and raining mornings year after year and done the job. And from him descends a line of men. A real society is a society of sunrays just like this. That is conscious life. Midwives, nurses, teachers, seamstress, sailors, generals, civil service, jurisprudence, all the same, all guilds, all sunrays from the center. That is a real life in a real world. And when each man carries knowledge, few men are required. But when they have become ants, when Microsoft does all the work and people just touch the keys, then millions of people are required to create the same amount of energy because they are empty, because the sun rays have gone. And I had this shock yesterday when I realized something quite frightening. It is not just that people imitate what it is to be a doctor and they imitate what it is to be a craftsman. Society today is imitating what it means to be a man. The entire thing is imitated, as if they saw it in a theatre and they tried to sort of copy the movements externally. And the shock was that there are two lines of imitation. In the sun ray of a guild, you imitate the inner man of the person above you. You learn from the old man, you learn with your sweat, and it teaches your inner man. But the way society is today, it's more like people are imitating unconsciously the outer theatre of life. So it is again a line, but a line of external imitation only. That was quite a shock yesterday. But whilst young people in the West are wondering what colour of skin they should be today or which of the 300 aardvarks their gender should be, I noticed that there are some white people in the world who are still proud and normal and happy to be alive. And that is why you are taught to hate them and to loathe them, because they are everything that you ought to be and that you should be. Now, another subject that has been spilling into my consciousness recently is the idea that the culture is like the psychic environment and the psychic modeling that you use to live and work in a certain way. For instance, with Christianity, if you were to buy the books of the great masters, meaning the saints, then that creates a large body, a large river that you can soak yourself in as you follow that path. That is culture, that is the river outside of you that helps you flow along that journey. I will return to that, I think. I was looking for a copy of the Canterbury Tales, which is a very important English book from about 1400. The setting is at an inn in the ancient English countryside. People are taking a rest for a few nights and they tell their story by the firelight. Well, there are many copies on eBay for £3 or £4 each, but I looked through about the first 50 and they were all retold by some fucking academic who had retold it in their own way, making it a bit easier and a bit dumber. And having a hunch that everything is like this, I collected together some pictures from Google on the Indian practice of alternate nostril breathing. I'll just show you some of these photos, and you can see that these people are all holding different postures in different positions. Please understand that everything is like this, not just spiritual things, but medicine, literature, art, even the art of lovemaking. This is how much people remember. And because we live in the Tower of Babel, very few people have had the experience of performing spiritual techniques correctly and getting the result. Because spiritual techniques are very subtle, very small details count. And if you do them wrongly, you get fuck all. And then one day, you will be tired and you will give up. Therefore, you must be very determined to learn the art of finding a good plumber, finding a good teacher. And I recognize that many things that we see in the West today derive simply from Protestantism, meaning from the urge to split off. And once you begin splitting, you never stop splitting. That's particularly a problem for Americans. There are 3 sections I want to read out together now to finish off. The first one is Gurdjieff talking about the fate of the second river, and then after that, the story of Jesus and the harrowing of hell, and after that, Catherine Hume and the advanced instruction given to her. Now Gurdjieff says, the second stream, continuing its flow over places formed by the consequences of the said cataclysm not according to law, ultimately falls into crevices in the earth, themselves also consequences of some cataclysm, and seeps into the very depths of the earth. At the end of the flow of the stream, as has already been said, into the crevices of the earth's nether regions, where it participates in the continuous process called involutionary construction, which proceeds within the planet. It is transformed into steam and distributed into corresponding spheres of new arisings. Of Jesus it is said, for just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster, so for 3 days and 3 nights the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth. But God raised him up, having freed him from death, because it was impossible for him to be held in its power. Hume says, there was a finale to this cigarette denial. I had crawled through a year of abstinence and had become quite thin-skinned as that year progressed. Things seemed to get through to me faster, as if I had actually shed some of those metaphorical crocodile skins with which the master had endowed me. Occasionally when he greeted me, well, crocodile, and how are the skins today? I demonstrated my suffering with a pantomimed shivering that evoked his Olympian laughter. At the end of the year I told him I believed I had conquered the enemy and could now go on indefinitely. He nodded. Yes, for you that makes a source for force. He looked quite benevolent as he studied me. Then he added in a casual voice, but at the same time, any man can not smoke. You do not wish to do what any man can do. Oh no, Mr. Gurdjieff. Smoke then. He offered me one of his Russian cigarettes. The self-confidence of the warrior is not the self-confidence of the average man. The average man seeks certainty in the eyes of the onlooker and calls that self-confidence. The warrior seeks impeccability in his own eyes and calls that humbleness. The average man is hooked to his fellow men, while the warrior is hooked only to infinity.
So ging ich diese Straße lang, und die Straße führte zu mir. Das Lied, das du am letzten Abend sangst, spielte nun in mir. Noch ein paar Schritte und dann war ich da, mit dem Schlüssel zu dieser Tür. Dieser Weg wird kein leichter sein, dieser Weg wird steinig und schwer. Nicht mit vielen wirst du dir einig sein, doch dieses Leben bietet so viel mehr. Es war nur ein kleiner Augenblick, einen Moment war ich nicht da. Danach ging ich einen kleinen Schritt, und dann wurde es mir klar, dieser Weg wird kein leichter sein, dieser Weg wird steinig und schwer. Nicht mit vielen wirst du dir einig sein, doch dieses Leben bietet so viel mehr. Manche treten dich, manche lieben dich, manche geben sich für dich auf. Manche segnen dich, selbst dein Segel nicht, wenn der Wind das Meer aufbraust. Manche treten dich, manche lieben dich, manche geben sich für dich auf. Manche segnen dich, setzt dein Segel nicht, wenn der Wind das Meer aufbraust. Dieser Weg wird kein leichter sein, dieser Weg wird steinig und schwer. Nicht mit vielen wirst du dir einig sein, doch dieses Leben bietet so viel mehr. Dieser Weg wird kein leichter sein.